Hey, this is Marcus Washington, MTC Media, with another episode of Good Morning March Madness. And we're finally to the regular traditional part of the bracket. And so we're starting them off with Ohio State -2.5 against TCU. The key to this one will be how the Buckeyes fare against TCU's defense. If the Horned Frogs can turn Ohio State over and get easy baskets, they will be tough to beat. The flip side is if this game is called close and the Buckeyes can get to the free throw line, TCU could be in some trouble this afternoon. Nebraska is -12.5 versus Troy. I just feel like this is one of these games where Cornhuskers big man Rick Mass could have one of these great games, and he's been struggling a bit. I mean, he's averaging 13.5 points per game, but he should be able to rule the paint, not depend on that 32.4% three-point shooting he has. But again, he's been struggling of late. This could be one of those get right games for him. Look, Fred Hoiberg runs such good stuff on offense. If you've seen it, you know what he can do, how he has that good mix of college and pro philosophy, and that's why leading scorer Price Sanford has thrived. For Troy, the game for them is threes beating twos, similar to what we saw Miami of Ohio do last night. You're going to need three to beat twos if you are Troy. Louisville is -4.5 versus South Florida. Mind you, when I wrote this out, it was right before Mikael Brown Jr. was announced to be out. So that 4.5 could be different. Just to let you know, that could be different. Look, South Florida is dealing with a lot of distractions in a way. Brian Hodgson could be headed out the door. There's several suitors. The reports say that he's not going to go to Syracuse, but certainly Providence is probably still in the contention for him. And the Bulls and Cardinals, they want to do certain things similar on offense. It's just that they do it in different ways. And Louisville not having Mikael Brown Jr., it's going to be tough. The reason why so many like the underdog South Florida is because they're rebounding, their three-point shooting, and you could argue that they have the better coach. Wisconsin -9.5 versus High Point. The Badgers would be well served with an old school mentality in just a new school way and just pound High Point and use their size advantage. They do have quite a bit of that. Now, they're not going to go inside the swing offense to do it. Oh, thankfully, we all know that. But there's ways for them to be able to exploit that size. So how does High Point combat that? Pressure the ball. I know they love turnovers, but pressure the ball is more than just getting turnovers. Pressure the ball is taking away angles, taking away passes, taking away driving angles. That's what pressure the ball could do. High Point would need to do quite a bit of that today. When we come back, we will take a look at more games on this first Thursday of the NCAA tournament. This is Marcus Washington, MTC Media. Welcome back to Good Morning March Madness. Duke -28.5 versus Siena. I don't know. There's not really much to say about this. As long as Duke stays healthy, this is success for them. Obviously, they're going to win the game. The defense could probably win the game alone, even if the offense wasn't that good. But just expect Duke to beat Duke. Vanderbilt -11.5 versus McNeese State. I could be missing something, but I don't see an upset opportunity that some feel like this is. I just don't see it. The Commodores should be fine against McNeese State, a team that will take chances on defense. And that's the thing that you cannot do against Vanderbilt because of their offense and their shooters. They will make you pay for every defensive mistake. And that's where I think McNeese State, what they naturally do on defense, will work against them. Plus, they don't have that much wiggle room. They're going to try to slow the pace down. They're going to try to make this a low possession game. And that means so many things need to go right for them. They have to have any missed shots that they usually make and just so many things to go right. One of the things I'll be watching is Jalen Washington pretty close. And if you can have a double-double, he's had some good games where he's flirted with that double-double, like 13-7 and those type of things. Can you get close to that today? Michigan State minus 16.5 versus North Dakota State. The biggest fear in for Tom Izzo in this one is Jeremy Fierce's behavior. Yeah, you see what I did there. Other than that, the Spartans should be fine. North Dakota State's best way of keeping this close is to get on the offensive glass and getting second chance points. Something I don't think that'll happen against this Michigan State team. Jordan Scott, the freshman, could end up having an opportunity to have a big game here. He should get a ton of clean looks from three today. Let's see if he can knock them down. Arkansas versus Hawaii. The Razorbacks are 15.5-point favorites. Same thing that's similar to what I said about Duke. Arkansas will take care of business. Hawaii coming to the mainland is not going to be good for Hawaii. It usually isn't, though they've had a good season, no doubt about it. They just don't play the same when they come to the mainland, and they're not going to play the same against a team as talented as Arkansas. When we come back, we will talk about North Carolina a little bit and get into BYU. This is Mark Washington, MTC Media. Welcome back to Good Morning March Madness. North Carolina's minus 2.5 versus VCU. And this is one of those interesting ones in the sense of VCU's a very popular upset pick. And this one for two reasons. One, North Carolina doesn't have their best player. They don't have Caleb Wilson. But the second thing is North Carolina's last two games, they have not been very good. That is the loss to Duke, and then that's the loss to Clemson in the first round of the ACC tournament. So Carolina comes in here on a 2-game losing streak. So how do they turn that around? Very simply, they got to dominate the paint in every way. They have to dominate the paint. Now, VCU wants to dominate the paint also, but in a different way. Well, Carolina is going to be scoring in the paint. Can they get Vesar in the paint? Can they get Jalen Stevenson, finishing in the paint, those type of things? But for VCU, it is paint touches. Yes, they do finish in the paint, but they break down your defense by getting 2 feet in the paint. And then they let their athleticism and their ability to finish take over. So really, it just comes down to who wins the paint here. And the player to watch, I mentioned him earlier, Jaren Stevenson. That is the player to watch for me for the Hills. If he has a big game, North Carolina wins this probably somewhere between 7 to 9 points. If he does not have a big game, this game is going down to the end. And then it comes down to, can North Carolina take care of the ball? Can they hit enough threes? Can they stay out of foul trouble when VCU gets downhill? VCU is a live dog in this, as they're being purported to be. Michigan minus 31.5 against Howard. Once again, similar to Duke, Michigan should just kind of cruise this game for them. Again, it's just staying healthy. BYU minus 2.5 versus Texas. For as much attention as AJ DeBansa gets, and he should get a lot of attention, he's one of the best players in college basketball, if not the best player in college basketball. The key to BYU's run in the NCAA tournament is Robert Wright III. If he's playing selfishly, and this is all about him creating this opportunity, BYU is not going to make it out the first weekend. Whether that's to lose on Thursday or to lose on Saturday, they're not going to make it out the weekend. He has to find the balance between his offense and being a distributor. When you lose someone like Richie Saunders, things change, the court changes. And though they do need Wright III to score a little bit more, they also need for him to be a distributor too. BYU, similar to North Carolina, got to win the paint. They can't let Texas win the paint, and that's going to be a great battle in there. So this is not a given that BYU wins the paint. They got to win the paint. For the Longhorns, really, they're not very good. They barely escaped the mediocre North Carolina State team. They can win this one, though, if BYU does not play like they have some sense. I'm telling you, Texas has a chance in this. St. Mary's minus 2.5 against Texas A&M. Buckyball is going to be tested again when they face St. Mary's. Obviously, Texas A&M wants to speed up the tempo, and St. Mary's is not going to allow you to do that without a fight. They want this to be a half-court game. just a half court possession by possession game. And if they get that to that type of tempo, I don't see how A&M wins this game. We all know Paulius Maracas for St. Mary's very, really good. But this is one of those games where I can see Mikey Lewis or Joshua Dent having a big game if things are going right for St. Mary's. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the last set of games in this first full day of the NCAA tournament. This is Marcus Washington, MTC Media. Welcome back to Good Morning March Madness. Illinois minus 24.5 against Penn. It's great to see Fran McCaffrey back in the NCAA tournament. As of this morning, not 100% sure on TJ Power's status for Penn. It's not going to make a difference. Illinois is so much head and shoulders better. Brad Underwood should be able to take this game into the second half and really, really blow them out. Georgia, St. Louis, the game that no one's talking about, which could be one of the most exciting games of the day. Georgia 2.5-point favorites. This is another game that shapes up as being high octane. Both teams are going to want to get out and run. This probably will come down to, because both teams are going to make shots. Both teams are going to miss shots. Both teams are going to get in the lane. Both teams are going to do all those things. This could come down to rebounds and who stays out of foul trouble. And that could be the deciding factor. St. Louis is better on the boards. They are better defensively than Georgia. But Georgia, if they are shot making today, they can overcome both of those advantages for St. Louis. Gonzaga minus 20.5 versus Kennesaw State. I don't think we are talking about Gonzaga enough. They are a legitimate Final Four possibility this year. Maybe this is the way that Mark Few wants it. Maybe he wants people ignoring them or not looking at them in a way that they should be looked at. And last but not least, Houston is minus 23.5 against Idaho. I don't think we need to say much about that. Again, stay healthy, but also for Houston, kind of get your defensive mojo back. Like really tighten up the screws on Idaho today and remind people who you can be on the defensive end. Well, thank you for joining me on this first full day episode of Good Morning March Madness. This is Marcus Washington from MTC Media.